Now, I just started recording this, so just to recap, in case I clicked it too late, this is Justin Williams, and he is one of the higher ups, one of the managers, one of the people with hiring power over at Chick-fil-A, Manchester Expressway in Columbus. So, Justin, we're glad to have you this morning. So you probably heard me discuss what we've already been learning so far in this unit, the job hiring process. So really quickly, what are the basics? What does a typical job interview look like for your company, Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, so what we do here is we do a 3-interview process. What we'll do is we'll review your application first. We use snagajob.com. The application's got tons of different questions. Ultimately, seeing if you can read instructions is the biggest thing. We're looking for people that, it gives us a score of your application. So if you don't score well, basically what that tells me is you didn't read or you didn't care about answering the questions. So once we pick out your application, we'll give you a phone call. Our administrative director, Casey, does all the pre-screening is what we call it. So we'll give you a phone call. I call them softball questions, really just kind of seeing where your head's at. Why do you want to work at Chick-fil-A? What draws you to Chick-fil-A? And then from there, if you pass the screening, we go to our first and second interview. The first interview, I used to do these a lot. It was just basically getting to know you. We want to know what makes you tick, who you are, what's your personality, what do you like to do, where do you serve in the community, if you serve at all, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. And then, pending the results of that first initial interview, you'll go to the second interview with a higher up, which is currently me. And so I'll have the last say. I'll ask you some deeper questions, some scenario-based questions, just to kind of see how you think, how you respond to adversity, those kind of things. And then finally, you'll interview with our owner-operator. So this is like the last one. And he takes a very personal approach to the last interview, digging even further into who you are as a person, basically seeing if we do the 3 C's: character, competency, and then are you going to connect with the team that we have? So those are the 3 biggest things that we're looking for in our interview. And that's kind of our interview process in a nutshell.
Okay, so you gave us a lot of information there. Let's kind of break it down. I'm going to allow some of our students to also ask some questions as well. But you first said you usually start with the website called snagajob.com. Is that correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for any students that are interested in getting a part-time job either right now or maybe at some point in the future, it sounds like you definitely recommend going to snagajob.com. And that's where, similar to what we've done with those websites like monster.com or Career Builder, this is going to be where you can find a position. From what I understand, Justin, they do have some full-time positions, but it's really great for high school students looking for part-time job work. Is that correct?
Right. We hire at all day parts, but for you guys specifically, part-time is a great start for us. We generally are looking for people part-time because, not a lot of kids that work at night have full-time availability, and we understand that. So we really target the part-time kids for night.
And that website's not just for Chick-fil-A, but for lots of companies, lots of businesses use that website, snagajob.com.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of our competitors use it, and then the Macon Road Chick-fil-A uses it as well.
Okay. So as we've already studied in class, when you're looking for a part-time job, the first thing you got to do is go to snagajob.com, find it. Then, as Justin already said, it's going to have you fill out an application. And this application is super important. It's the first thing that a company, a business like Chick-fil-A is going to see about you. So, Nehemiah, go ahead and share with us. Do you think it's important for someone filling out the application to make sure that you go through it step by step and fill it out exactly the way it's asking you to fill it out? Is that important, Nehemiah?
It's important. Yeah, it's important because they need to actually know, like, what can you do and, like, how can you, why do you want to work there?
Sure. If you guys couldn't hear him, he said it's super important so that way the company can know what what you're about and why you want to work there. And as you heard Justin say, it gives you a score. It gives you basically a grade. And so as Chick-fil-A or any other company is looking at the people, the students from Central High School, from Smith Station High School, from some of the Columbus high schools, as they're looking at all these students who have applied, they're looking at the scores. It's like grades. And they want the best scores. And so if you skipped questions or didn't fill them in correctly, it's going to show up in your score, and you're probably not going to have as good of a chance of getting hired. All right, now, Justin, you mentioned that there's a series of interviews you might go through. First, possibly being a phone call interview. What are some things that that person who does the first phone call interview, what are some things that person may ask someone who's wanting to get hired at your business?
So the biggest question that we ask is, why do you want to work at Chick-fil-A? And I'll just kind of give you guys what we're really looking for is, we're not looking for, we get this answer all the time. Oh, I need money. Well, no kidding. You wouldn't be applying for the job if you didn't need money. I work here because I need money. But why do you want to work at Chick-fil-A? Think about that question. When you're applying to jobs or wherever, a great answer for that is, I love the atmosphere Chick-fil-A has. I want to be a part of a winning team. I want to be a part of Chick-fil-A's culture. Even my owner-operator has said this, I just love the food. Like, we want people that are passionate about our brand and love what products that we're pushing out. And I would say next really is what we're doing is verifying. So we're cross-checking your answers. Hey, are you really available at this time? Hey, where are you going to school? What's your availability look like? Because we do get a lot of misinformation on people's application because it's a fault. Most of the time people will say, oh, I'm available all these hours. And then we talk to them on the phone and it's like, oh, I'm really not, because I have basketball or volleyball or whatever. And for me, like, you just wasted my time. And so I'm not going to proceed at that point. But that's pretty much all the first phone call is.
Okay. Now, Jeremiah here in class. Jeremiah, share your thoughts really quickly.
I was gonna say back when he said, whenever I need money, you say something like, I just like to what the child do.
Yeah.
It's when I come to Chick-fil-A, I get a good review every time I come here.
Okay. So Jeremiah is saying exactly what Justin said. Using I need money or I need a job is not really the best answer. Yeah, but they'd be saying why I want to work at this place particularly, whether it's Chick-fil-A or any other business that you might pursue. You want to talk about why you want to work at that particular place.
Right.
Now, Justin, when someone goes to the phone interview, maybe it goes really well. You said the next step is typically to interview with someone like yourself in your position. Is that correct?
Right. You'll interview with a leader, a senior leader for sure.
And will that, I know with the coronavirus, things are a little crazy right now, but typically, Justin, would that interview, the one with you or someone in your position, would that be an in-person interview?
Yeah. So outside of coronavirus, we do in-person interviews. Right now, we're currently doing Zoom.
Gotcha. Okay. So some type of virtual meeting similar to what we're doing right now. So Justin, I want to do a quick little activity if you'll engage with us. I want you to think of a couple of questions, Justin, that you would typically ask someone doing that second interview, someone doing that in-person interview with you. And then I want to see how my students might answer. I'm going to call on the 1 or 2 students in class and maybe 1 or 2 students online. So if I call on you online, be ready to turn your microphone on. No pressure here. I just want to see how we might respond to a couple of these basic interview questions that you might hear in one of these interviews. So Justin, what's a typical question you might ask someone when they come to interview with you?
Right. So this one I always ask, what's your biggest strength?
What is your biggest strength? Anybody in class feel like they might be able to tackle that one? What's your biggest strength? Amir, you're pretty well spoken. You got any thoughts?
What's my biggest strength?
What would you say if someone asked you in an interview, Amir? What's your biggest strength?
Communication skills.
All right, so he said communication skills. Justin, what do you think about his answer, communication skills?
So generally, depending on how he delivers the answer, if I feel pretty confident in his answer, like, hey, I'm a good communicator, I'll say, okay, great. Well, give me an example of how you're a great communicator.
Okay. So I think what Justin's saying is a good answer. A lot of times, though, we also have to prove that we are. So I truly agree with what Amir said. I think he is a good communicator. But a lot of times, as you guys know in life, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so you want to be very thorough. We want to give full answers, not short 1 or 2 word answers. We want to give full, complete sentence answers. I am a good communicator. I connect with people. I can have good relationships with people, things like that. All right, Justin, another question. I'm going to call on somebody on Google Meet to answer this next one. What's another question, Justin, that you might ask in an interview?
So this one stumps a lot of people. What's your biggest weakness?
All right, so he said a second ago, what's one of your biggest strengths? Now let's hear what one of your biggest weaknesses is. I see your hand. I'll come back to you, but I want to call on somebody on Google Meet. Anyone can take this one, but I know that Deja, you're typically pretty involved, or Elena. Does anyone on Google Meet want to try to tackle that one? What's one of your biggest weaknesses?
Can I?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so I say my biggest weakness is being available. I'm very busy, so I have time to.
Okay, thank you, Miranda, for sharing that. So, Justin, taking into consideration that Miranda went out on a limb here and kind of was vulnerable, what would you say as far as her answer might be about her weakness?
You know, any answer to this question is a good answer at this point. The wrong answer, there's really only one, and it's I don't have any weaknesses. Because what we're looking for really is, can you be honest? Like you said, can you be vulnerable? Can you be transparent? And that's why we ask that question.
Very good. So, like he said, the wrong answer, the only wrong answer is to act like you don't have any weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, even the best of us, even me. I have a lot of them. Justin's a friend of mine, and he can tell you some of my weaknesses if you ask him. So we all have them. Can you be honest and tell somebody, you know what, I'm really good in these areas, but I struggle. I struggle in these. I don't do so well in these areas. Very good. All right, maybe one or two other examples, Justin, and then we'll wrap up. Just about weaknesses.
All right. Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry. I was talking to Amir in class. Yeah, I was talking to a student in class. But yeah, one or two more examples of what you might ask in an interview.
Okay, this one's kind of geared more towards Chick-fil-A. It's not really, I would say, a general interview question from my experiences. How would you define urgency, or what is urgency?
Ooh, that's kind of a thinker right there. Braden, you want to try to tackle that one?
Get a job done as quickly as possible.
Okay. To get the task, to get the job done as quickly as possible. Urgency. I like that. Anyone else have another thought before we ask Justin? What is urgency? Anyone on Google Meet? How might you answer that question? What is urgency? Anybody have any thoughts, ideas?
To be as quick as possible.
To be as quick. Okay, so similar to what Braden said, to be as quick as possible to get the job done.
Could it be to be caught on without knowing you're going to be caught on?
Okay, so kind of be ready whenever you're called on, even if you don't know that you're going to be asked to do something.
Do it quick but right.
Do it quickly but right. Don't just get it done, but get it done the right way. I like that, Amir. Jeremiah?
It was kind of what he said, but I'm change up. Do it right the first time. That way you don't have to worry about nobody nitpicking with you and talking about, oh, you want to do this. You know, somebody trying to tell you how to do your job. Do it right the first time.
Totally, and that's very similar to what Amir said. Jeremiah said, doing it right the first time so you don't have to have somebody come behind you and nitpick. Right. Elena on Google Meet said urgency is doing something as quickly as possible, being ready and getting your task done right. So, Justin, what do you think about those responses you heard some of the students say?
Yeah, those are all really good responses. the reason I like to give you guys the reason that I ask these questions, and the reason we do is to see, kind of what we're getting. A fault of a lot of our new team members or new employees is they kind of go in a shell and they don't know what to do. So they just kind of stand around. Or when they do something, they're like making a milkshake for their first time. They're very timid or they're not very confident. And I would describe urgency as moving with a purpose. So every single thing that we do in our restaurant has a purpose. Every single player has a role. That's why we call it a team member. It's a team thing here. And so every teammate has a goal. I mean, you think about football, you think about sports, all these other things. If one person is not doing their role and they're not doing it, like I heard somebody say, effectively, ultimately, or not doing it the right way, then it affects the whole team. So I like to see what you guys think about, okay, what is urgency? What does that mean to me? How can I apply that? And so that's why we asked. But all those are really good responses. Moving with a purpose, moving quickly, doing it right the first time. All great responses.
Perfect. Okay, as we finish up, Justin, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're working. Really quickly, one or two things that you see, especially with high school students, since that's who our audience is right now. What are one or two things that you have seen high school students do well in an interview? Not just with their answers, but the way they approach themselves, the way that they appear, what they bring with them, those type of things. And then one or two examples, without saying any names, of course, one or two examples of things that you've seen that it just didn't really go very well for the interviewer. Can you just share us a couple of examples of things like that?
Yeah, so I'll start with some things that go right or things that I really like to see. We talked about it earlier. We're doing Zoom calls now. So when I get on a Zoom call, typically the interviewees that do really well, they're in a well-lit area. I can see their face. There's no technology problems, and they're dressed nice, and they're very confident. I really like a confident interviewee. It lets me know that they've prepared for the interview, and it lets me know that they're very sure of themselves. So those are some things for the ones that have gone through and gotten the job, some characteristics of their interviews, and some of the ones that, we didn't have an opportunity for, very timid, one-word answers. Try to avoid one-word answers. Be thorough. Kind of like we talked about the guy who said, I'm a good communicator. Okay, well, what makes you a good communicator? So those are some things that I'm kind of looking for. Like, I have to have proof that what you're telling me is true. So, like, I could go into an interview and say, well, I play ball better than LeBron James. And, like, do you expect you guys to even like, that's laughable, right? So, like, when you come to me with a strength or you're telling me something, I'm gonna test you. I'm gonna say, hey, can you back this up? And so the ones that have gone through the interview process and they're obviously, stretching the truth a little bit, or they're giving me one-word answers, or they don't seem like they're very prepared or even want to be there. We would be surprised how many people we interview that feel like they don't even want to be there. Those are some characteristics of the ones that don't go good. But my advice would be a salesman. Hey, you're going after a job. You have to sell yourself. I've learned this lesson the hard way. I've interviewed with people in Atlanta, and that was their biggest thing. They said, you were qualified, you had great answers, but you really didn't sell yourself very well. And so just something for you guys to think about.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your thoughts there. A lot of things that you've told us that we can now discuss in class and really help sink into our minds here. But we really appreciate your time, Justin. You obviously are an industry professional with a lot of interview experience, and so we really thank you so much for your time and how you've helped us gain a better understanding of what we can do to be successful in our future interviews as well. So thank you again so much. We really appreciate you, and we hope you have a great Friday and a wonderful weekend.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.